So welcome to a little Vinyasa yoga. So I'm going to start, normally with Vinyasa, I don't start this way. I often start in child's pose, but for today I want to do some core work up front and a little psoas release. That's my favorite. So I'm going to start lying down, and since I'm going to start lying down, I'm going to do a little blanket underneath my spine to create a little shoulder opener. So I've got a blanket, I've rolled it up, so it's not too thick, but it'll make it a little bit interesting. I'm going to lay that down, and then I'm going to lie down on top of it. Now, you can do a butterfly situation with your legs if you want to, and I'm going to use a block under each knee to just create a little bit of support there. So first things first, I'm going to find the right spot for the blanket, which usually for me is about the bottom of the rib cage. Sometimes I like just a little bit more of a little wrinkle right there under the neck. And then I'm going to take my feet and put them together and then let the knees fall open. I'm just going to see if I can find the just right spot for the blocks to hang out so that there's just the barest hint of stretch there. This gives me a chance to kind of get centered, to pay attention to the breath, to let some opening happen around the chest. Sometimes this is my favorite way to start, but sometimes lately it feels pretty good. So if you want to start a different way, you certainly can, but this is a nice place to land if you're up for it. Stay for about 4 or 5 more breaths. So I'm going to bring my knees together so I can set the blocks off to the side for a second. Then I'm going to take, just roll to the side to slip the blanket out from underneath. I'll keep that handy for later. But I'm going to take advantage of this slightly like impression feeling of the blanket still being underneath my back to give myself a little bit of a back massage just by kind of rocking side to side. Alrighty. So I'm going to start with the feet on the floor, in constructive rest position for the most part, relaxed hip flexors, hands behind my head, and I'm going to press my head back so my neck really is isolated, so it doesn't, I'm not pulling with my neck at all. I'm going to try to just warm up this little center band of my rectus abdominis, just by using it to curl my shoulders up just a bit. And I'm not going for anything extreme. I just want to feel like, where's the point where I can't really squeeze that muscle together anymore? Give it like the little extra squeeze and then inhale and come on back down. I'm going to try to do 2 more of these. Alright, so then I'm going to take one ankle, in this case it was my left one because that's the one that came up, ankle across the thigh. I'm going to leave that there, warm up the obliques. So I'm going to try to work, it's going to be on the other side, but I'm going to try to work really firmly just from this grouping of muscles. Again, keeping my head nice and steady, and just bringing that right elbow up off the floor, right shoulder off the floor, towards the left knee. If you did your right leg up, then you'll do the opposite. I'm going to do 2 more like that. Now, leaving my legs still there, I'm going to come back to these little center band curls. Two more of those. So putting that foot down, picking the opposite leg up, and then curling the other direction. And again, really trying to focus on working from the obliques. Seeing if I can engage those muscles. And 2 more like that. And then coming back to the center, leaving my leg across. And curl it right up the middle again, trying to keep my head nice and stable. And 2 more of those. All right, so unwinding everything, I'm just noticing how it went. There's a pleasant warmth kind of all in this sort of upper area of my abdominals. I'm fond of that. So now I'm just going to try to create a little pleasant warmth in the hip flexors. And if you've been doing this with me for a while, these will seem familiar. So we're going to come back to these little curl up notions, but we're going to add the legs. So with the feet resting in constructive rest, I'm going to lift my right toes, and for me, it's not that hard. This mat's a little slippery when it's dry, so I can easily glide my leg all the way out. But if you need to, you can gently, like, just graze the edge of the mat with your foot. So I've got my toes pointing straight up, and I'm really trying to stretch out the front of my hip. And then I'm going to bring the knee in and curl up toward it, straight on, for 3 rounds. So stretch out. Oh, give it a good long reach. Curl up. Straight on, stretch out, oh, nice long reach, curl up. So now I'm going to externally rotate. So starting with the toes pointing up, stretch, rotate the leg out, and then bring the knee towards the right elbow. So straight up and down for the glide and the stretch. Rotate. Curl it up. One more time. Straight out. Oh, try to stretch that a little bit longer. Curl. So now we're going to do the internal rotation. We'll bring the knee towards the left elbow towards the right knee. But starting with that stretch, rotate the leg inward. Come across. So straight up and down. Press out through the foot. Oh, get that hip really nicely long. And then that little internal rotation there at the end. Curl it around. Stretch, rotate, and bring it across. All right, so we're going to stretch it out one more time and give it a nice little release. Just kind of rotating through that little internal, external range of motion. And then stretching, and then rotating, and then stretching. And then just glide the foot back into place. Oh, I'm going to do these little wide windshield wipers in between. Oh, just checking out the hip, and oh. So there's just a nice kind of pleasant warmth, a little sense of release there in the right hip. It goes all the way up to my waist. But it's a more internal feeling. Just notice what you're experiencing there in terms of sensation or what muscles were worked. It's fun to notice. So I'm going to do the left side, same idea. Right side's going to stay put. Lift the left toes, glide that leg out, and again I'm stretching as best I can through the whole front of my left hip. Oh, and then coming in. And the stretching out part is just as important as any other part, so don't skimp on it. Oh, stretch. And then stretch it out one more time. Straight down the center. Okay, so this will be the external rotation round. So I'm going to stretch, rotate, bring it to the left elbow, stretch, rotate, bring it to the elbow, one more like that. Stretch out. This is going to go internally and come across. Stretch out. And then one more time. All right, so then I'm done here with the head so I can let go. But stretching this leg all the way out, really trying to feel that right through the front of my hip, and then just rotating the leg a little bit, stretching out again, rotating the leg a little bit. Stretching out again one more time. Oh, and then I'm just going to glide that foot into place. Pause for a moment. Do some little windshield wipers. Oh. And then just see where that kind of landed me. I noticed the right side a lot more than I noticed the left, but still, there's kind of subtle shift that's happened. It's pretty subtle. It's possible I'm making it up. All right, so eventually what's going to happen is I'm going to get myself into a downward dog. But on the journey to downward dog, I'm going to do some things like a little child's posy thing and some cat shapes and some movement patterns along that line. So I'm going to invite you to take a similar journey, but time it in the way that you think is best. So you can spend more time with the child's pose or no time with child's pose, whatever you like. So just kind of folding in, giving yourself a few poses to kind of move into downward dog. like to kind of liquefy the dog, get my shoulders moving a little bit within that structure. I might walk in place or play with the angles of it. At some point, you will be done with downward dog, and then you can come to a forward bending shape. And from here, we're going to take the legs up kind of wide. So not quite as wide as a wide angle forward bend would be, but maybe a little wider than a regular forward bend, right? So, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to turn my toes out just slightly. I'm kind of leaning over this way, kind of feeling out what the direction is. So I'm going to bend my right knee, straighten my left leg, and then staying over here with my torso, I'm going to see if I can switch it. Bend the right knee, and then see if I can switch it. And then bend my right knee. Left leg goes pretty straight pretty easily. Bend in the left knee. That one gets a little more interesting in the hamstring stretch category. Turning the toes in a little bit more. Hello, stealth weasel. Oh. All right, so then coming back out over to this side, I'm going to bend my left knee, basically until my chest touches my thigh. Right leg is straight, and then I'm going to switch which leg is straight, which leg is bent. Like that, just coming in, bent knee, and then straightening that leg out. And you might want to lift your chest up a little bit more at that point. That's fine. All right, to the center line, I'm just going to bring my feet in a little closer, come up halfway, exhale, fold, come all the way up to standing. It might take a second. Give yourself a little stretch. A little jiggle, and then find your way to the top of your mat in a mountain pose. Okay, here we are. So arms relaxed as best you can, toes pointing forward as best they will. Notice what happens if the legs are more straight or slightly bent. What happens if you let the tailbone get a little heavier. So we're going to take the arms straight up. Grab the right wrist. Give yourself a little stretch over to your left. Press down into your right foot a little bit. Come on back to the center. We're going to take the weight into that right leg, take the left leg up off the floor. Now you can do any balancing pose you want. I'm going to do a tree, but you could grab that foot if you want to do a dancer, or bring it across if you want to do an eagle. There's lots of options. All right, so I'm going to pick up this leg and step back into a warrior one. So warrior one takes the high lunge and just brings the hip to the ground, or hip to the ground, foot to the ground, so the hip kind of matches that angle. Still facing forward though. So I'm going to bring myself to this point where I feel like my torso is lined up with the angle of my back leg. Closing my eyes may not be helping me. Helps me feel things though. And then just holding steady right there. So I'm feeling that kind of little bit of extra core work to hold this. Good, so then I'm going to do the same idea. So I'm keeping the knee bent pretty good, putting my chest pretty darn close to that knee. I think I'm going to get a block. Okay, so then I'm going to try to straighten out my front leg, which might lift me up a little bit. And then I'm going to bend the knee and come back in here as deep into this kind of bowing, humble warrior as I care to go. Straightening out the leg, elevating the torso there, bending the knee. Come it over into this humble or bowing warrior one more time. Straightening out the leg. Finding the right amount of stretch. Bend in the knee. All right, so now this little humble warrior, this bowing warrior, I'm going to go to the diagonal, reach both hands out in front of me, and let myself get folded into here as deep as it's willing to let me go. Oh. One more breath. Okay, so I'm bringing my hands around to the top of the mat. I'm going to step back and then wind up in downward dog. Hold steady for just a moment. Notice the right side and the left side. And then add your vinyasa as you like. You can modify, you can do a cobra or an up dog. Just choosing the poses that are going to work best for your shoulders, your hips, your feet, your knees. We're going to take that right leg up. Bring it straight down the middle like we did earlier. Take it up, bring it to the outside elbow. Take it back, bring it to the inside elbow. Take it back, sink into that left heel. And then step your right foot forward, take your left foot up to meet it. Come up halfway. Exhale, fold. Coming all the way to standing. And then we're going to find that mountain pose. Once again, and for me there's a difference between the right side and left side, so that's fun to notice. So I'm going to bring the arms up, nice long stretch, grab that left wrist, give myself a little stretch over to the right, coming back, shifting the weight into that left leg, bringing myself to a tree. And choose your balancing pose as you like. Alright, so then I'm going to pick this up and step myself back into a warrior one. I like to just kind of feel things out. Make sure I like the pose, and then I'm coming to that point where I'm just going to hold steady. Lever of my arms, everything asking my core to do a little extra work. Hold this stable. Last breath there. And then I'm going to fold in, and again, I'm getting close to my knee here. And then I'm going to straighten out that leg and see where I wind up. So bending the knee, letting myself go in towards this little humble warrior shape. And then straightening out the leg. Feeling out the hamstring stretch. Bend in the knee, hello. Oh. One more time, I'm going to straighten out this leg. And as I bend the knee again, I'm going to come to this sort of diagonal in the shape and pause there and get really, really low. As low as it'll let me go anyway. All right, so then we're going to turn that back into downward dog. Eventually. Notice if the dog feels a little different than it did last time. And then add in your vinyasa as you like. And that left leg's going to come up when you get there. Curl it in. Bring it back to that outer elbow. Bring it back to your inside elbow. You can skip those if you like. Sink your heel. And then step the leg forward. Bring the right one up to it. Come up halfway. Exhale, fold. We're coming all the way to standing. Oh, give it a nice big stretch. Oh, maybe a little jiggle. Oh. And then find your mountain pose again. And notice. One of the things I really get into is noticing kind of the progressive, like slightly cooler feeling of being in mountain pose. So there's more sensation in my body right now. I feel my skin a little bit more. I feel the muscle a little bit more. I'm a little warmer. Maybe a lot warmer. So it's interesting just to check it out. See what's going down. So we're gonna take a nice big breath and come to a chair pose. All right, so this chair pose is gonna turn into a forward bend. So I'm gonna fold over my legs and then see if I can straighten them all the way out. The body may need to pop up a little bit. And then bend the knees and come back to that chair. So folding, straightening, bending, and back to the chair. One more like that. Folding, straightening, bend, come back to the chair, and then we're gonna fold, come up halfway, exhale, fold, and we'll step back into down dog. Now you can just hold your down dog, or you can throw in the vinyasa sequence. So come into plank, lower and down, doing an up dog, that sort of jazz. You want to just hold down dog, stay here, a couple breaths. Okay, and then we're all going to do the right leg first. So we'll take the right leg up when you come back to down dog. Exhale, bring that knee in, and we're going to hover for a second, and then see if we can put the foot down without being too aggressive. Now we're going to come to warrior two, but I'm just going to jiggle my feet into a slightly happier place, because this may not be perfect the way I landed. All right, so once I get myself into this spot where I feel like I'm gonna be stable and my hips feel pretty good, I'm at that warrior two. So we're coming back and over. Now, you can do these with absolutely no touch down, and then you really have to use your core more. If you're feeling wobbly today, give yourself like that little touch point, right? Might even be on a wall. So we're just giving ourselves the room that we need to make it our own. So one more like that. Now I'm going to hang out here with this side angle pose for a moment. The knee is bent in the front. Leg in the back is pressing, and I'm lifting a little bit through this inner thigh. So I've got some room to stretch out my torso. Hello, friend. Then I'm going to transition this into a triangle. So I add little, like I bring my legs a little closer together. I think I'm going to add a block today. So I kind of like to play with poses I'm going to stay in for a while. Sort of like we did that little bent knee, straighten it, and then wound up in our humble warrior. Similarly, we've kind of done some things to create length and space before landing here in triangle. So if you're not quite ready, move a little bit more. Try to connect your shoulder blades to your back. I'm pressing into this block a little bit so I have a little bit of resistance to lengthen with. Last breath here. Now, I'm getting a little tired on this right leg, but I'm going to try one more pose while I'm here, and that's a half moon balance. So using the block, or just putting your hand on the floor, or if you've got something else that you can work with, we're going to see if we can get this left leg to come all the way up and stack up on top of the hip there. If you fall, put your foot down and catch. Okay? I'm tickling my plants while I'm here. So I'm lifting from this hip, spreading out a little bit. And then in a second I'm going to come back to downward dog. But first, a little jiggle. And then a downward dog. So again, you can stay here with the downward dog and just wiggle things. You can add in the vinyasa sequence of your choice. And then we're going to do the same thing, but on the left side. Left leg comes up, and then bringing the knee in, we're going to round and hover there for a moment. And then put the foot down and find our way into a warrior two that seems suitable. Sometimes I get in and I'm like, nope, not quite right. Just adjust it again. And then we'll come back and forth through these nice little reverse warrior side angle interplays. All right, so I'm going to go back one more time, and then this is where I'm going to turn this into my triangle. Again, there's lots of different approaches to yoga poses, but the more I can sort of feel my way through and feel like I'm embodying the poses rather than just doing them like some sort of you know, remote exercise. I'm trying to come up with the right word, but that's not it. Rote, that's the word. Rote exercise. I've memorized, the better. Even though I've done this shape thousands of times, can I meet this shape as if I've never done it before today? Okay, so again, we're going to come to this half moon balance. I'm trying to find a nice lifted shape where I'm kind of lifting up toward the ceiling. Trying to stay as light on my hands as I can. All the weight on the leg. Alright, so I'm going to bring this knee in and I'm going to bring it down to the ground, closer to a forward bend now, and then give it a little jiggle. We'll wind up coming up halfway. Fold that over again if you like, and then coming all the way to standing. Give yourself a stretch. A little jiggle. And then we'll find our way back to mountain pose. All right, y'all. So we're just pausing for a moment and noticing. It's my favorite thing. So we're going to do one more little balance pose to standing pose sequence. Technically they're both standing poses, but again, you get to pick your balance pose. Now, I'm going to go for a warrior three. I'm going to keep my arms down. You can put your arms up, sort of like you're going into a chair, right? And then the idea is with the half moon balance, we tilted the hip up. And with this pose, we really want the hip to stay level. So if you want, you can even use like a table or some blocks or your couch, wherever you got handy, and you can put your hands there so that you can find that sort of level pelvis. Now I do find it harder to pick the hands up after I've gotten myself steady there, but give it a whirl anyway and see if you can get the balance, even if you have to catch a few times. This is going to turn into a wide angle forward bend in just a moment. So once I feel steady, turn in all 10 toes into the center. Now, you want your legs to be fairly wide, but if it starts to collapse inward into the arches, that's too wide. So make sure you can keep the outer edge of the foot pressing down and you've got enough room for the inner thighs to make that space happen. And then you're gonna fold to whatever degree you fold. Right on. So again, I take the first one of any time for sure and find my way in a little at a time. So I'm seeing, like, how straight can I make my legs, and then how far into my torso does that allow me to go? When I start to feel it too intensely, I back off. I'm gonna let my head go because that feels really nice. Just to let the, however much it weighs, my skull, relax a bit on the end of my neck. So I'm going to come up halfway, and I'm going to do a little bit of a twist. Now, this sort of takes me into territory that resembles revolved triangle, but I'm not going that far. So I'm going to use a block. I've turned my toes out so that they're more like a 45-degree angle. You may have already had your toes turned out a little bit. And then I'm taking my right elbow towards the left side on the floor. So I'm going to put my elbow on this block. And then I'm going to lengthen out my torso a little bit and just rotate towards that leg. So it's just shy of the revolved triangle pose, but it has flavors that remind me of it. And then coming back, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Taking my time. I might need a little bit more, like sometimes I need a little bit more room on one side than I do on the other. So I'm lengthening out and rotating in. Now, you have two choices. You can come to downward dog and finish that with a vinyasa, or you can step yourself together back into your mountain pose. Come up halfway, hold, and all the way to your mountain. So you decide which way is going to be the better way for you. Do you want that extra vinyasa in there? Throw that in. Oh. Vinyasa just means to put poses in a considered order. It's basically all it means. So we're doing vinyasa no matter what, but the colloquial way that it's used to describe that sort of sun salutation pattern. So you can throw that in as you like. So once again, we're back here in this mountain pose, and I'm going to do the warrior three on the other side. So I did my left leg in the air last time and stood on my right leg, so I'm going to stand on the left and take the right leg in the air. And I've only got one block, but I do have some pumpkins. So I can use that to get myself started, and again, I'm trying to get my pelvis nice and level, and then reaching back. If I start to fall, I can always catch. To hold that level pelvis as best I can. Working with my friend the rubber tree here. Okay, one more breath. And then I'm gonna step back and merge back into my wide angle forward bend. Now I'm gonna turn this wide angle forward bend into a bit of a half squat in just a second. But first, letting myself take that pose. So last time we went side to side with the leg straight. Now we're going to go side to side with the knee bent. So I'm going to just go to the point where my knee is just slightly over the ball of my foot, not past my toes. You can get wider if you want to go deeper. I'm just going side to side, kind of half squat on one side and a longer leg on the other side. And this is going to turn into a lunge in just a second. So I'm going to turn this all the way around and bring my left knee to the ground. Okay. Now, gonna go for a lunge that's sort of in between at first, and then I'm gonna take it a little deeper. So just finding the point where I feel that stretch in the front of my hip, and I've got a block there for support as I like. Ooh. Sometimes I go too far and I feel that after a breath or two, just back off a little bit. Feel what's true for you. Okay, so now I'm going to get a little bit lower. Bring my elbows to blocks. Turn my leg out a little. Hello, cutie pie. This is feeling pretty deep. I'm going to stay for about 3 more breaths. And then I'm going to come back to this kind of straighter leg, slightly more at this diagonal, kind of bowing into that humble warrior angle again, but with that front leg straight. Now I'm going to switch sides. So bringing the left leg forward and finding that lunge that feels like it's kind of right, just like a nice little sweet center point, not too much, not too little, just right. The front of my right hip. You guys are very active this morning. Now I'm going to go down a little lower, moving toward the diagonal, turning my foot out a bit. You think you're so stealthy, but really you're not so stealthy. Not so stealthy. Not so stealthy. Not so stealthy. Cute though, super duper cute. Okay, so once again, I'm going to kind of ease the hips back, fold over in this diagonal area. So I'm not straight over this leg, I'm off to the side a bit. Now I'm going to turn this into a seated position by just bringing my hip to the ground. You may decide that you want to adjust the way your legs are positioned first. Now, once you get seated, you just want to make sure that you can sit up. So that may mean that you're going to take your blanket and fold it up and sit up on the edge of it. Some people need more than one blanket, so you can use as many as you like, so that we can get the pelvis neutral, so we can sit up nice and tall. So the legs are out a little on the wide side, not as wide as I can go, but pretty wide. And I'm going to turn the toes up and bend the knees just a little bit and really try to engage the quads here as I fold. And I'm just going to fold just a little bit. So I'm keeping my spine nice and long. And as I kind of go along here, it might invite me to more. It might invite you to no such thing. So just pay attention to what it's inviting you to do, not me. Recreating my wide angle forward bend here. So my feet would have been pressing into the floor, right? And I could work all the muscles in my legs. We're just recreating that shape one more time. Seated makes a difference though. All right, coming back out of there, lean back, bend your knees. Give your legs a little jiggle. All right, we're gonna take one leg on top of the other. So you can do knees crossed over one another, or you can do shins crossed over one another, or a hybrid, like a tight, just cross-legged sitting position. I'm gonna take a block. Hold on, I've got to rescue my, they think that they can just slip in around things, but really they just knock stuff over. They're clumsier than they think they are. I can relate to that. That's why we're, that's why we get along. All right, so I've created as best I can kind of a square with my thighs. You might have a triangle where your knees are crossing each other. And then sit up tall and see, like, will the pelvis let you come forward a little bit? We're looking for some potential sensation in this outer hip, but we're not looking to cause any trouble for the knees. And if the hip isn't ready to go, the knees will pay the price. So pay attention to where you feel it. Back off if it lands in your knees, and maybe let yourself kind of explore coming forward as the pose lets you. If the pose lets you. We're all here together. Now, I'm going to add a little bit of a twist to this in a second. And when I do that, then I'm going to play with my upper back, but I just want to tell you a little bit about what I'm going to do. So essentially what's going to happen is I'm going to take one shoulder blade kind of up, like I'm trying to take it up towards the back of my skull, and the other shoulder blade I'm going to simultaneously take it down. And it's almost like I'm trying to take my right shoulder towards my left ear and my left shoulder towards my right hip, right? And then I'll switch it and do the other one. So I'm trying to make the shoulder blades go kind of towards the diagonal, if that makes sense. They're only going to move so much, but that's the notion that I have. All right, so I'm going to sit up nice and tall on an inhale, twist towards whatever leg is on top. So my left leg is on top, I'm twisting to the left. And then notice, like, did your pelvis get a little funky? Just make sure your pelvis is nice and steady. Then I'm going to take the right shoulder blade up towards my right ear, left shoulder, or towards my left ear, and then my left shoulder blade down towards my right hip. So it's like almost like I'm trying to slide one on top of the other. Then I'm going to let that go, give it a little rinse. And then again, right shoulder blade goes up into the diagonal, left shoulder blade goes down to the diagonal. And then give it a little rinse. Sit up just a little bit taller, and one more time. Hold steady with that shoulder blade position. Look it over my back shoulder to make a little bit more room for it. It's just a way that I find I can free some tension from my upper back. Okay, let it go. Come out. We're going to let this leg go. Oh, give everything a little sense of freedom. Oh. And then, oh. Pause for a moment, just see what happens. You can sit any way that makes sense to your legs, but just notice what the sensations in your upper back feel like. Notice what the twisting sensation did to your side waist and your low back. And then notice how your hips feel about life. So for me, it's pretty much pleasant. There's a little tiny bit, like I'm still feeling like I'm twisting that way, so I'm not ready to do the other side quite yet. But in a moment, I think it usually just takes a few moments for that to sort of settle in. So I'm going to put the other leg on top while I'm waiting for that to happen. I can get my legs set up. And so again, I'm kind of going for whatever the most square situation I can get. You can go for the triangle. Everybody's bones are shaped a little differently. So some of us are going to be able to do either pose, whichever one. Some people are going to lean more in one direction or the other. So just whatever version works best so that your hip doesn't feel, you know, your knee's not in your armpit or in your ear, and your hips feel like they can work with this shape. And again, sit up, see if you can just sit up tall, and that might be plenty. You might already have all kinds of sensation in this pose. If your pelvis will lean forward, see what happens. If your knee starts to hurt, back off of that. And there might be other places that hurt. Maybe you feel it at your butt bone or something like that. So whatever pain you feel, pain is not what we're going for. Sensation of like a sense that something is stretching and pain are different. So qualities of pain are like sharp shooting, there might be numbness, tingling, a burning sensation, or you just kind of intuitively know, oh, that's not right. Listen to all those things. Okay, so I'm going to add my twist in here. So turning, and again, just being mindful of how much, like my pelvis is kind of locked in place. So my low back's only going to twist so much. And my emphasis here anyway is on this movement in my shoulder blades more than in the twist. So I'm going to take my left shoulder blade up into the diagonal and my right shoulder blade down to the diagonal. And then release that. And then move them again. Oh. I have more movement in one shoulder blade than I have in the other, but gosh, it feels good to try, even in the sticky shoulder blade. Okay, so I'm going to do it one more time. And without over twisting my low back, I'm going to see if I can get these shoulder blades to kind of occupy a space one on top of the other. Just trying. Freeze up a little space in my upper back. Okay, so I'm going to come out of here nice and easy. Lean back, release the leg. Oh. Tell you what, while I'm holding that, it feels quite interesting. And then once I let it go, oh, like all kinds of things happen. Sometimes we can get, I get little knots up underneath my right shoulder blade. There's some scar tissue in there, and sometimes I think the fibers of connective tissue kind of tangle on one another somehow. Oh. So any movement that I can get under the shoulder blade helps keep my range of motion nice and big. All right, you guys, it's time for some Shavasana, but before we get there, we'll do a little spinal twist on our back. So while we're twisting, and I'm going to do this one kind of more in motion than stillness, and I'm also going to use this pillow underneath my legs in a moment, so I'll just have it handy so I can reach it. I underestimated the length of my own arms. I often do that. All right, so I'm starting with these little windshield wipers, so that's just a little light, little twisty shape. And then I'm gonna just bring the knees in and do some little twisty shapes. You can just do a happy baby, you could land in a twist. I'm gonna land in just a second. Oh. So just kind of letting the right legs come down, giving that right chest muscle a little stretch. I'm gonna hold that for about 4 breaths. More. And then coming back. Oh. And then taking it to the left side. Oh. I'm bringing it back to the middle and taking this into Shavasana. So Shavasana is a pose that we often, especially if our legs get kind of busy, we'll often kind of skip out on. But the thing is it's your chance to reset your nervous system, to kind of plug back in to your parasympathetic nervous system, the nervous system that helps us digest food and repair body tissue and replace brain cells and all that sort of stuff. And in times of stress or times when things are uncertain, we don't stay in the parasympathetic as much. So give yourself this little vacation for just a few more moments. Just rest. Especially focus on unwinding your face and relaxing through the throat. Those are places where the vagus nerve or vagus nerve touches down, and we can send a little signal back to the brain that all is well. And we might habitually carry tension there in the jaw or the lips. Maybe we have resting witch face, which is a protective gesture against the world. So we're just going to let that all go. Stay a wee bit longer. Just let your body stay soft. You can pay attention to the breath if you need something to do. Yogis, notice your breath again if you left off somewhere. Take a couple of nice deep breaths, just feel them drop into the body. And gently lift out. And then we're going to give the fingers and toes a little wiggle. Stretch them apart. Give the wrist and ankles a little movement. And then stretch your whole body. Maybe do a little banana shape to each side. Give yourself a hug and a back massage because it's good to hug, and give yourself a back massage every day. You should hug your favorite yogi every day. I'm just saying. Okay, so then we're going to come up to a seated position. Thanks for joining me today for some Friday morning vinyasa. Luckily, the interwebs worked it out this time. We could join each other. Let's take a nice big breath and a big deep sigh. Namaste, yogis. Thank you. Welcome to the rest of your day.